Hi, I'm Nick Solacek, and I'm an Imago relationship coach. And today I'm going to answer your questions. The first question: my partner cheated on me. How can I move forward from this? The truth is, a lot of people can't move forward from this kind of situation. There are a lot of challenges with affairs and affair recovery. In Imago language, when someone has an affair or they cheat, there's actually something deeper going on for them personally. There's this developmental stage that a part of them is trapped in, and they're playing it out in their adult relationship to avoid the experience of pain. So for you, understanding that would be a really, really important part of the process, as well as working with your partner to restore trust and safety. That might require work with a therapist, a coach, a counselor, or a facilitator of your choice. Generally, to work through these kinds of situations, people do find that they need support. So I really encourage you to do that. I encourage all couples to do that when they experience challenges like this. Obviously, it's very sensitive. It makes sense that the betrayal, the rupture to, your connection has created some challenges, has created some issues there for you. And so you need to be heard, you need to be validated, you need to be understood for that. And you and your partner also need to talk more about what the relationship vision is. What is the intentional direction that this is going? What do you want to create together? And that is also part of the path forward. So it's not easy, it's going to take time, and it's going to take some commitment. Next question: my partner is not interested in doing the work. Can this relationship be successful? Yes, the relationship can be successful, but this answer really is more about your definition of success. So, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you that your partner doesn't want to do the work? What is it that you desire in the relationship? What is it that you're looking for? Because I hear this a lot from people. Generally, I hear it from the women in the relationship that their partner doesn't want to do the work. They don't want to go to therapy. How can I get them to change? How can I get them to grow? How can I get them to be the way that I want them to be? And this is usually a challenge that both partners have in some way. It's just not always about personal development. It might be about money management. It might be about intimacy issues in the bedroom. It might be about how to drive, what speed to go on the freeway. One person believes that they have the right idea, they have the right philosophy, the right perspective, and they want their partner to feel the same way. So couples get into a lot of issues around this, and it might be helpful to understand that a lot of men are not socialized to talk about their feelings. So what's more emphasized as being masculine is thinking and acting. And there are four parts to our core self, which is thinking, acting, sensing, and feeling. So there's something in our culture that socializes men to really be more about facts, sticking to the facts, thinking that through, analyzing, criticizing the situation, versus being able to acknowledge their own feelings or even hear yours. So there's something to work out there. And I imagine that part of this process is you want to feel more understood in some way. Next question: can setting boundaries make you look selfish if your partner and her family aren't used to it? Absolutely. If you say, no, I'm not interested in that. And, when you say no to someone, they can take it personally. It's always possible. It's always available. At any moment in time, we can take something personally that our partner says, something they do, something they don't do. And when it comes to family systems, there's different ideas about boundary setting. Some families don't teach anything about that, right? If you've been spanked, for example, that's a boundary violation. You're being physically hit, physically punished, but you don't want that, right? So you're not consenting to it. So there's all kinds of dynamics like this that we experience as children when we grow up. Um, the lack of boundaries, in different areas. So when we say no, I'm not interested in that. I'm not available. I don't want to do that. To our in-laws, to our partner's parents, um, there's all kinds of ways that that can go sideways. A lot of the issues in personal relationships, a lot of the issues in romantic relationships are actually about boundary violations. So this is an important question. When we set boundaries with other people, the way that we do it, the tone that we use, the language that we use plays a big part in helping someone understand our feeling, having someone understand where we're coming from. So I want to emphasize that it's, yes, boundaries are important, your boundaries matter, and that if you say it really, really aggressively and loudly, That doesn't necessarily increase the chances that anybody can hear you. Likewise, if you keep things to yourself and keep things in your own mind, withhold your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and you're rigid, and your boundaries come off that way, sometimes that's not the most authentic expression of how you're really feeling. So I'd encourage you to look a little bit closer, more closely at this dynamic. If you're getting some pushback, if you're feeling misunderstood, how could I communicate this in a more open, expansive, sort of heart-centered way that lets my partner and lets her family know that I don't have any bad intentions or judgments about them, and I'm looking forward maybe to hanging out with them at some point. That might not be true for you, but how can you communicate from a more open place so you don't have ill intention, and that there is something there about your desire and your vision and what you want? Can extremely harmful relationships heal if individuals do? Yes. Now, I'm not getting a specific dynamic here from you on this question. Can extremely harmful relationships heal if individuals do? Depending on the circumstance, and how harmful the behavior is, again, like cheating, betrayal, affairs, there's going to be some work required to repair, because in relationships, we are always experiencing connection, disconnection, and repair to varying degrees. And a sort of a really subtle example of that, that's not maybe hurtful or chaotic, is when you get up in the morning in a typical work day, and maybe your partner goes to work and they leave. Okay, so there's disconnection. You were just together, they've now left, and they go to work, and then eventually they come back. And so there's a reconnection. Now, we don't need to think of that as like repair, because maybe there's no issues coming up, nothing needs to be resolved, repaired, or worked through. But what I'm saying is, like, there's always this kind of pulsing energy. Now, in more intense situations where trust is broken, where the safety is ruptured, where you're not really feeling like you can count on your partner to a high degree because of some chaotic or volatile behavior that's shown up in the relationship, that's when a little bit more, processing and work is involved. And typically people need support with that, and they need some guidance. Most of us are not trained or educated very well in relationships. Most of us are not therapists, and even if we were, it's not really helpful to be the therapist in our relationship, because equality is a really big deal. And that equality adds to the sense of safety, but it also adds to the sense of really attunement, that two people get each other and they're on the same frequency and same level. So healing is possible in your relationship, and it might require some work to do that. And what that work looks like for you might be unique. So just encourage you to seek support on this, and get a little bit more clarity and get an answer that's more specific to your situation. Can you truly forgive and get through your partner cheating? Can you truly forgive and get through your partner cheating? One of the things that's really important to understand is that for the person who cheated, um, that choice is really about a developmental stage from childhood that they are stuck in. So these developmental stages, for example, like attachment, exploration, the development of our identity, there are deficient parenting styles, less than ideal ways that parents show up, which create wounds, which subsequently create fears, and then the child adapts and they evolve. So that is always connected to the choice to cheat, the choice to go outside of the relationship for some need that wants to get met. So they're avoiding the pain of the relationship. They're wanting to escape the pain, the discomfort, the tension that's there. So they exit and they go somewhere else to avoid that pain. And there's something in the middle there. There's always a variable. Be interesting to know what it is for you and your partner, that's at play. So it's helpful for you to understand that. They certainly need to understand that, and couples need to do work on this together to recover. How to heal a relationship after addiction and abuse. No longer going on, but trauma still has a huge impact on our dynamic. Rebuilding trust and safety is so difficult. Yeah, it is. And this is really, something that we're all working on in our relationships, is we've got these patterns in our body, in our body mind, and we wake up every day and we're just who we are. We're our characterological structure. We are, our name, our job. We've got these things we identify with. And that's been happening. We have a lot of time invested in that pattern. We have a lot of time invested in, who we are being unconsciously. So it does take energy to slow that, metaphorical train down, so to speak, and decide in what direction you want to go in, and then actually start, gaining momentum on that path. So it sounds like you guys have stopped the unwanted behavior. You've interrupted the pattern somehow, some way. You've intervened, and it'd be really helpful for you to understand ways that you can build trust. How can you understand more about safety? How can you understand more about becoming an attuned partner and developing integrity and becoming consistent and reliable and communicating in a way that, really embodies these traits, and that you're there for your partner within, reason, within your boundaries, and that you guys are clear about where you're headed and what you want to create together, because all relationships are a co-creation. So it could be a co-creation of uncertainty, co-creation of abuse, co-creation of lack of sex life, and both people are usually contributing to the dynamic in some way. So again, just emphasizing this, because a lot of these questions are about healing, that you can heal. We're designed to do this. Our brains are designed to heal. Neuroplasticity is a real thing. And in my relationship and in my life, I've definitely had this experience where I gain more awareness and I bring more consciousness and more intention to the moment, to the dynamic. The way that John Wineland phrases this is bringing intentionality to the tension. So you might just need a little bit of training. Like a great tool that I teach people is the Imago dialogue, and that really helps couples understand where each other are coming from, removing finger pointing, blaming, shaming, criticism, and it's a trauma-informed technique to work through challenges in relationship. Should I be okay with my boyfriend's ex-wife moving back into his house temporarily? I don't think there should be any way that you feel about this, but it sounds like you've got a feeling. And it sounds to me that you're uncomfortable with this situation. So, your feelings are valid. That makes sense to me that you'd be uncomfortable with that. And I wouldn't let me or anyone else tell you how to feel about this situation. What matters here is that you and your boyfriend are able to talk about your discomfort without that conversation going sideways, which, it seems like a sensitive situation. I imagine that there's some emotional charge here for you, and some maybe worry, maybe fear, concern. So it's important that those are addressed. And if you're not okay with the situation, that's okay. You don't need to change your mind. You don't need to become someone that you're not. But that might mean that you need to set a boundary. That you need to say, okay, hey, this is actually not okay for me. I don't feel comfortable with it. Is there another option? Is there another solution? To explore that and have that conversation. Next question. I've been dating my partner for a year. We moved in together and now they want to live apart. What should I do? This really sounds like power struggle energy to me, which is that we get into this first phase of relationship where we want to be close with another person. We want to move in with them. We want to spend all our time with them. We maybe want to marry them, or we want to have a baby with them. We want to travel the world with them. And it's this honeymoon phase where, we get the dopamine and the norepinephrine pumping through our system. It's blissful. We're focused on all the similarities between each other, all the things we have in common. And inevitably, that stage ends. It's a stage, it's got a beginning and an end, and we enter the power struggle where something comes up. Usually it could be a key moment, a key topic, a fight, an argument, a disagreement that pops this honeymoon bubble. And we start to notice the differences in our partner. We start to notice the ways they see the world differently, and the way that kind of, makes us uncomfortable, the way that we disagree with certain things. And we notice those differences. When we notice those differences, our brain codes those as threatening. So difference equals danger. And we can want to push away. We can want to, get out of the situation. We maybe, for most men, it's like freedom is a really big deal. So it's like, okay, I got to get out of here. I want to be free. Something stressful about this. I want out. And that's okay. If your partner doesn't want to live with you, then that's his choice. But I can imagine that might raise some questions for you. It was like, what does that mean? What does that mean for our relationship? What does that mean about your feelings for me? And it was actually going to be really important for you to understand more about what's coming up for him so you can make a decision about investing more time and energy in the relationship. So again, coming back to this thing, what is the relationship vision? Where are we headed? What are we creating together? And are you comfortable being in a relationship, committed or otherwise, where your partner doesn't live with you, right? It's totally possible for that to happen. And it doesn't mean something really bad about the future of the relationship. But it's clear when someone has this, is moving forward, moving backward, it makes people feel very uncomfortable. And it could be a sign of, it could be a red flag, something to look deeper at, certainly something to talk about. So make sure you have this conversation. My partner has a lot of friends that are of the opposite sex. Seems like a red flag to me. How do I make them understand that? So this is a really common one. One partner has friends of the opposite sex, and that brings up something for the other person, often feelings of insecurity, jealousy. There can be, suspicious thoughts about what's really going on and what your partner's intentions are. And it would be really important for you to ask yourself, what concerns you about this dynamic specifically? What hurts you about it? Is there some pain, some frustration, some disappointment that is activating or aggravating for you? And what are the fears, right? So my partner has all these friends of the opposite sex. What's the story you make up about that? And what are the fears you've got about that? And is there some memory here connected to your past, generally childhood? Like if you have a childhood that includes experiences of abandonment, neglect, invisibility, then it would make sense that you really have this strong fear about your partner having friends of the opposite sex, because that opens the door to threat, right? That, there's some other potential people here of the opposite sex that could be threatening to my connection, to my partnership, to my relationship. So you got to get clear on that for yourself. And you need to find a way to talk to your partner about this and to share with them about your discomfort, but really actually to also open and to show more curiosity about them and the way they see the world. What are these connections like? What's their vision for these relationships? And to hear more about that and see if you can see more of the situation for the way that it really is versus seeing it as like, worse than it is or way better than it is. So we want to kind of just get with the reality of the situation, and often our perceptions, our projections, and just kind of what we do with our mind, we turn things upside down. There can be a lot of distortion. Why can't I maintain long-term, healthy, and exciting relationships? Why do most of my relationships perish, lose their spark, or vanish? This is a tough question to answer because, it's going to be very personal to you. But in my experience, in my work, what I see is that everybody I work with that has challenges in relationships are essentially dealing with these ways of being. They're essentially dealing with these childhood adaptations that they developed when they were young, and those things become their adult problems. So, for example, if as a child you needed to become clingy or needy and like chasing your parents' energy, or you needed to become detached, isolated, avoidant, um, you had to do those things basically to survive the dynamic in some way. And so they show up in your adult relationships. And in this way, we're all kind of working out the questions that our parents never really answered. So, I'd be curious, do you have actually a great example in your family system of a healthy, long-term, exciting relationship? Most people that ask this question feel that they don't. They feel like, oh, like I never really got an example of that. It wasn't taught to me explicitly or implicitly. I didn't spend time really, in my family developing secure attachment. There was all these kind of scary, uncertain, crazy things going on. So it's likely that this experience that you're having where your relationships lose their spark, perish, or vanish is playing out some dynamic of your childhood where the connection was lost, where someone maybe was lost. And what I see is that people unconsciously recreate traumatic scenarios from their childhood. They recreate their core childhood scene in their adult relationships. It's not happening to create a nightmare for you. It's actually happening for you to heal and grow. And there's some opportunity there. It definitely is painful, and it, again, could be helpful to get some professional support on this one. How do I handle relationship anxiety? For someone that experiences anxiety, they might respond in different ways. They might deal with that feeling in different ways. For some people, anxiety activates you know, like a minimizing kind of response. So to pull away, to avoid, to detach, to get small, to be a perfectionist, to get very quiet and withhold all their thoughts and feelings. And for another person, anxiety might get explosive. They might get really loud. They might want to talk about everything right now with their partner and not get consent for important conversations and not respect boundaries. And they can become like a more of a storm, more of a tornado energy versus the other person becomes a little bit of a like a turtle in a shell. So for you, be just curious, sort of see which one you might be. In my work, I call that minimizer maximizer. That's from the Imago framework. And if you are the tornado, your opportunities are really about self-soothing, self-regulating, and that would include doing work on your nervous system, potentially through somatic therapy or another kind of practice. And if you're the turtle in a shell, your opportunity is to open up more and to take ownership of your emotions, to talk more about your feelings. And if you had a partner, that would be with them. So, how do you manage your anxiety? Anxiety in the system is probably patterned from things that have gone on in your life, developmental stress, other traumatic scenarios. And it's really a fear about the future. It's really a fear about something that may happen. And so it can be helpful to process that to say, okay, like, what am I feeling? What's coming up? What does this remind me of from my childhood? And what's the story I'm telling myself about this situation and the other people involved? That would be the first steps of starting to work through something like this. And eventually asking yourself, what is it that you need right now? And is there a way for you to give that to yourself? Next question. I'm not sure how transparent to be with my partner. I don't want to overshare. How much should I share? This is a great conversation to have with your partner about how much to share and what are they available for. I sense what you're trying to avoid here is burdening your partner with your process, oversharing with them, and affecting the polarity in some way, and maybe making them or turning them into your therapist or relying on them too much for support. So this is a really great question to explore further. How much do I share? What I often advise to men is that because we're socialized to not talk about our feelings and we're more thinking facts, analyzing, we can be more in our heads, certainly focused on thinking and acting, that it's great to open up to your partner and tell them about your experience. Many women want to hear about their partner's feelings. And in my sessions with couples, what I often hear is, oh, I didn't know that you felt that way, or I'd never heard that about you. So this is a very common question. It's a common issue in relationship. And really what this is connected more to is authenticity. So when one partner starts sharing or jumping into their process, the other person has the option to say, hey, I love you and I'm sorry you're going through this right now, or I actually am interested to hear about this, but I'm not available right now. Or, hey, I'm feeling really full and I actually, have to jump on this work call, or I just want to hang out with you and watch a show, or I want to go for a walk with you right now. There's different ways to work through this, but again, it's just emphasizing that there's two people interacting, there's two people connected here. So it's not just about you making a decision privately about how much you should share. There's an opportunity to talk about that, right? To decide and to check in with your partner. And in terms of general advice here for partners, I always recommend that they don't overburden, overshare, overprocess with one another, because then your relationship can start to feel like you're always in therapy. And I can say from my experience that there are moments in my relationship where it has felt like just like it's really heavy, or like it's like we're are constantly working things out or talking about things or like in our therapeutic process. From that experience, from that personal inquiry, I've learned more about myself in terms of what I need and what I want, and more awareness about when those sensations come up in my body that I'm feeling full, I'm unavailable, and learning how to communicate about that in the moment, with attunement, with again, openness and being direct, not rude, but direct with my partner to let her know where I'm at. So I would try some of these things and again, have a conversation with your partner about it to get a sense of where things are at. If your partner has vocalized complaint about this and there is something that you're aware of that's a problem, then you want to get clear about what the vision is, what is acceptable, what's in the realm of desire, right? How do you want the relationship to look? How do you both want it to look? Because you're always co-creating. Every day you're co-creating. Every conversation you have, you're co-creating something with your partner. And you can co-create a space of misattunement, a space of disrespect, a relationship that feels disconnected, or you can co-create something that is trustworthy, connected, authentic, and that's going to look different for every couple. All right, I know who asked this question, and I believe they submitted it as a joke, but I'm going to answer it anyway because this is something that actually parents deal with a lot. The question is, how do you stop your kids from being cock blocks? And isn't it interesting that we do the thing that gets us a child, and then the child prevents us from doing the thing again? So there's a lot of responsibilities that parents have. I am not a parent, so you're just going to take this with a grain of salt. But coming back to this thing about the space between and what your relationship looks like, you and your partner can take full responsibility for, the lack of intimacy, the lack of time together. And there's always some kind of solution. It's really, really important that children understand boundaries and that children understand that it's okay to have time by yourself, right? It's okay to say no, and that it's normal and acceptable and totally okay for parents to want to have a break from the children, for parents to want some space. So the way you might set that up is different. A family member might babysit the kids for half a day. You might get a babysitter. There's all kinds of ways you can do this, and some obviously be more affordable than others. But this is a legitimate, challenge for couples. And so bringing more intentionality to the situation, right? Instead of being focused on what's not working or focused on all the things that you have to manage and all the things that you're juggling in your life, how can you have more of what you want? How can you create that together? How can you work together on that to really, keep the relationship nourished, but also the family system as well? Because if you and your partner are connected, feeling like you get that quality, intimate time, that's going to cascade over to your connection with your kids, but your work, your family, and that will make a positive difference. How can I be by his side and still let him figure out his own stuff alone? So many of the questions that people are asking are really a reflection of this exercise: needs, wants, desires. So for every couple, for everyone that's looking for a relationship, being clear on what you need from a partner, being clear about what you want, what you desire, if you could wave a magic wand, what does that look like? This is a really important process because it emphasizes kind of like a self energy, that I exist, I have needs, there are things that I want. There is a minimum standard. There's, got to be this tall to ride, right? Okay, we at least need to be here. And if your partner's working through something, how can you be there for them while they work it out? Part of that is going to be, reflecting on your needs, because if there's something, if basically them working it out means that you're not getting your needs met in a big way, that can be a challenge. And so if you have a tendency to self-sacrifice or self-abandon, you could end up resenting your partner for that by you putting your things aside. So you guys got to stay connected and communicating throughout this process so that you can understand where your partner's at, what they need, how you can support them within your boundaries, so how you can be a support, how you can give them space. And that often starts with a question of, two people inquiring, how can I love you better? How can I show up in this relationship in a way that would be even more exciting or would be even better. And one of the great dyads you could do, one example would be, I appreciate you because something I appreciate about you is, and following that, something I would love even more or something I would appreciate even more. We're trying to get at the the dynamic that's maybe frustrating, but trying to ask for more of what you want in positive terms. And in situations like this where one partner is working out their stuff, working through their purpose, working through loss, working through, whatever it is, it's important to still have conversations, not avoid the sticky stuff or the challenging issues that are at hand. I am terrified of getting intimate with new partners and always rush through it before I'm ready. Help. It's basically everything, just from letting them hug me, being present in my space, and sex as well. I'm comfortable with it all after several experiences, but first times my body is just nope. The rushing through it occurs to me as rushing through it and trying to avoid something in particular, and that could be something from your past, could be something from your childhood even. And I would really encourage you to bring more authenticity to this and to slow it down a little bit. So in issues with sex specifically, a lot of people are avoiding having certain conversations, whether that's about protection, safety, intention, future vision, even just what you like, what you're into, how do you want it. People avoid these questions, and sometimes it just becomes one person, doing something to the other without really any communication about that. So there's a lot of assumptions about how it should go based on adult films, TV, what basically what's in the culture around being intimate. So bringing more intentionality to those moments and not rushing through it, and maybe sharing with your new partner or your next partner, in these situations, I normally rush through things because in the past, what I've experienced is the first time my body's just a no, and there's something that comes up for me. So I really want to take it slow, want to work through that. And I want a partner who's able to hold space for that a little bit and really become an ally in my healing and to support me as I'm working through this specific challenge. So it's okay. I know you don't probably want to have this experience, but it's okay that you feel the no. It's okay that you've got that sense of anxiety or that lack of openness, that close, that guardedness. So instead of rushing through that or plowing through that, how can you create a situation that is more of an invitation to open, right? What would that look like? How would your partner be being? What might they be saying? What would the temperature of the room be like? Would there be music? How many dates would you like to go on that with them before you have that experience? How much trust do you want to build? How safe do you want to feel? So really encourage you to get a little bit more clear about what that might look like. And instead of, yeah, bulldozing through this experience, to slow things down actually. And that's often one of the antidotes to a lot of the challenges that people have in relationship, certainly for couples, is to slow things down, to turn down the reactivity, and to bring more intention to the situation. What do you do when you're not on the same page but don't want to end the relationship either? In general, couples are not on the same page about all things. So it's different to be on the same page about whether to eat meat or not than it is about whether you want to sleep with multiple people or not, whether you want to have kids or not, whether you want to live together or not. The issues are different. So if there's something really serious that you're not on the same page about, then that needs to be looked at, that needs to be discussed. And every topic is a little bit different here. So you need to get more clear about what you want. What are you creating? When I work with couples on their relationship vision, each person will go through, they'll write their relationship vision out, and they'll put bullet points on different subjects like travel, education, intimacy, money, fitness, investments, health, diet. They'll have bullet points for these different areas of relationship, and there's more. Each person does that. And then they swap relationship visions and they check off where they're on the same page and where they're similar, what they agree on. And for the ones that they don't agree on, those are things that need to be discussed. And inevitably, you need to decide whether you can work with that and whether that's okay for you or it really is a deal breaker. And there are deal breakers, there are non negotiables that people have. Sometimes we're not aware of them, we're not clear, and we're afraid that if we take a stand for what we want, that we won't be loved, we'll be rejected, we'll be left, that there won't be anyone else out there for us. So being in a standstill or just like living stuck like this is really puts you in a place of coping, which is kind of dead zone energy. And that's where people are really inside of their unconscious stuff and they're just trying to survive, just keep the relationship together, try to minimize the fighting. But it can have a real stale kind of feeling to it. So if that's where you're at, I encourage you to get some support on this and maybe come to a session. I don't stop myself in time from saying something that hurts my partner's feelings. Tips to work on my sensitivity with an oversensitive partner. Well, first thing I would say is to drop the label of your partner being oversensitive because that will not be helpful generally. Your partner is going to have growth opportunities for sure, but I would just drop the label of them being oversensitive because we're all sensitive and we've all got needs. We've all got things that we want and don't want to happen. We've all got ways that we want to be loved, ways that we want to be talked to. And when we experience things in our relationship, it interfaces directly to our first primary relationship, which is that of our primary caretakers. And if she's having this experience, she's getting frustrated, or she's being overreactive in some way, or she got these big, charges that happen. That's probably connected to one of your growth opportunities around attunement or delivering things a little bit more softly. So there's something that's called the moment of emergence, which Gay and Catherine Hendricks wrote about in Conscious Loving, the moment of emergence. So there's always this moment in time where we can expand that just a few milliseconds to take a deep breath, to pause, and to try to practice what we're learning, because that's essentially what you need to do. It's not going to come to you like lightning every time. You are going to have to develop a practice of slowing things down and maybe taking that conscious breath or having the awareness that, oh, I'm in this moment again where I'm starting to sense my partner feeling reactive, or I'm starting to feel them get sensitive. And I want to be more mindful here about the way that I'm interacting, the way that I'm being with them. The Imago dialogue that I teach is a structure that helps couples do this by having designated clear roles, sending and receiving. So it's like, structure. It's a masculine structure, and then there's the thoughts, feelings, the sensitivities, the fears, the wounds, the hurts, all the things that come through that. And it creates a really great foundation for couples to work through their challenges because it's a safe conversation format. So that might be a great place to start with your partner to talk about actually, what comes up for you when she's sensitive to the way you are. And what are your concerns and fears about that? And what's there for her? And what is it that you really desire? What are you longing for in the relationship? So instead of having a dynamic where you don't stop yourself in time from saying something that hurts her feelings and her going into her taking it personally or whatever story she makes up about you, instead of you guys doing that, like you're the bad guy and she's the broken one, how can you have some more dignity for yourselves? How do I stop critiquing my partner's every action or inaction? This is a classic question that people ask when they're inside of the power struggle, the second phase of relationship. How do I stop judging or criticizing my partner? And that mechanism happens for a number of different reasons, but one of the reasons it happens is that you're seeing the differences between you and your partner and you judge them. So you judge the things they do, you judge the things they don't do, you judge the way they put the dishes on the counter, the way that they're lazy with the laundry, the way that, they're up late at night watching TV. I'm just making these things up. But essentially, that mechanism that you've got with them, you probably have with yourself. So if you have a tendency to judge and criticize other people, be very harsh, to not be accepting, it's likely you have the tendency to do that with you. We all learn in our family systems to use negativity. So Criticism is the adult form of the infant's cry, right? So as adults, we use negativity to try to get what we want, criticize, blame, shame, guilt trip. And we learn as babies when we cry out, we make sounds when we, are uncomfortable that we should have that wail or that cry or whatever that sound is. We're pre-verbal, and someone generally, hopefully, comes to attend to us and to try to correct the issue, to ease our pain, ease our worry. We see it a lot in the world. We see people shaming, blaming, criticizing, saying it's other people's fault, not taking responsibility. And essentially, what's connected to that is this belief that if I cause you pain, you will love me in the way that I want to be loved. And you and everyone else has a way they want to be loved. I'd encourage you to maybe journal or reflect a little bit on the judgments that you've got. So, I judge my partner because, or I'm critical about this. And maybe you got 5, 10, 20, 50 bullet point items. Write that out and then go back through the list and notice where these patterns, behaviors show up in one of your parents, just to connect the dots. One of the things that happens in relationship is our partner shows up in a certain way, and they really are the way they are. And some of the ways they are can trigger the shit out of us. And we've got our own story, we've got our own projection, we've got our own film that we're, placing onto them. And those projections are typically connected to the negative traits of our primary caretakers. So if you have a parent who's anxious, worried, negative, and controlling, you would project later in life that your partner is anxious, worried, negative, and controlling. And you might actually select a partner who is those things sometimes, that they can show up that way. Connect this to your family system, see what patterns you can notice, and work noticing these patterns, becoming aware of the patterns, getting curious about that is part of self-growth, is part of awakening. It's part of the work that we do in relationship. What to do with those patterns and insights is up to you. You might need some guidance on that, but awareness is really the first step. So that's why I'm guiding you there. How do you inspire or motivate your spouse who is not motivated to do healing work? It's very difficult to get somebody to do something that they don't want to do. And for men, the way they're socialized is really more about this thinking and acting part of our core self versus sensing and feeling. So, in terms of doing the work or going to therapy, that's really about feeling. And if we go to therapy, maybe that means something's wrong with us or we're weak. There's all these kinds of stories that people have about going for support, asking for help. And one of the tendencies that men have is to do it on their own, be the lone wolf, go their own way. The old cliche about not stopping at the gas station and asking for directions. So when it comes to relationships, it's this trap. We're uneducated. We don't have great examples. We don't have great teachers. And we're unwilling to ask for support because of what society says about us if we do. So you can't make your partner change. You can't make your partner, want to do the work. Some people offer their partners ultimatums to get them to do what they want. My recommendation here is to ask yourself how you might be more of an invitation to your partner doing the work with you in some way. How might you be more of an exciting, inviting, warm invitation to something that you want? You can't get everything overnight, but you might start sharing more about what you're excited about, what you would love, what would feel so good to you. Essentially, men want less fighting, more sex. They want peace. They want less conflict, and they want more intimate time. This is a reflection of John Gottman's work. Essentially, it's what it comes down to. And what women want is trustworthiness. That's the number one, statistically, it's the number one thing that they want from the survey data. There are other things women want, but trustworthiness is the biggest. And maybe there's something in you that wants to trust that your man will be there with you in the future. Maybe there's some part of you that wants to trust that he knows himself. Some part of you that trusts that you're on the same. You want to trust that you're on the same page. And all of that's worth discussing. So, in terms of inspiring or motivating, I would not recommend you become your partner's coach, but be an invitation to the thing that you want. And in that way, doing your own work and being an awesome person can inspire, others to join. But essentially, if there's this resistance in the relationship, it's not really going to help if you push against that, because when you push against resistance, you get more resistance. If your partner is against traditional therapy, what are some recommendations? Well, I am a relationship coach, so you could come see me. Uh, it's not therapy, it's coaching. And maybe that would be helpful. We've had a few questions today about, how do I get my man to do the work? What if my partner is not into therapy? And in a Mago language, one of the things that's going on here is that one partner can maximize and emphasize and believe that facts are important and thinking is important and feelings are not, right? Talking about feelings is not important. It's kind of like minimizing of one part of our experience, saying like, yeah, there's not really a lot of value in that. It doesn't make a difference. It's all smoke and mirrors, therapy's a scam, whatever kind of the ideas that people have are. So you could do a workshop, you could do a talk, you could read a book together. There's all kinds of ways that you can engage in personal work without going to an actual therapy session. I personally believe in therapy, and I've seen the difference that it's made for me and the people that I work with. And, clearly millions of people around the world are engaged in their therapeutic healing, personal development process, their growth path. And not everybody wants to choose that path. Not everyone is here to develop themselves. I mean, I think that's clear. When I look out in the world, when I walk down the street, it doesn't seem that people are that interested in consciousness or bringing more awareness to their relationship. We don't see this work practiced in the White House. We don't see this practiced in government institutions. What we see on TV is not a reflection of conscious awareness, of the embodiment of love, the embodiment of consciousness. When you turn on the news, you generally get chaos, negativity, some of the worst things that are going on, the problems in society, and there isn't an emphasis of positivity. I feel now more than ever that people are very open to coaching, therapy, getting support, and that's amazing. And some people are still resistant or not interested. As I answered in another question, try not to push too much against that resistance, because you're going to create more resistance. So, how can you become an invitation for the thing that you want?